Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Blueprints. My name is Chad Jennings. I'm the head of customer voice and product experience for IBM Software. I am joined by Gab Gilling from IBM Expert Labs and Mark Murphy, who's the CEO and founder of the Claims Connection Group. So we're here to talk about an application that Mark specified and Gab went ahead and built that's kind of helped the CCG group really scale up some interesting use cases. So that's what we're going to get into. It's called Lexxari. So Mark, do me a favor, take it over here. Please introduce yourself, CCG, and Lexxari.
Yes, I'm Mark Murphy, founder of Claims Connection Group. Claims Connection Group is a managed repair program for insurance claims on the property. So long story short, what happens here is if you have a home and it's been hit by a fire, water, wind, hail, or any of the above, and you don't have a trusted contractor, that's where Claims Connection Group comes in, and we help find those contractors for you and work as an intermediary between the contractor and the carrier and are an advocate for you, the policyholder.
I absolutely love this use case, right? Because the customer is like in deep trouble, right? Something bad has happened to their house and they need a contractor. And so you helping them in that time of need, I think is fantastic. We'll talk about how the technology helps you do that job better, which is like the highest and best use of technology in my humble opinion. And so one of the things that Lexxari and the AI allows you to do is like if you're trying to match, thousands of customers with thousands of contractors, you've got a lot of policies to integrate and contracts, like you've got tens of thousands of pages of documents to mesh. So instead of digging through those hundreds and thousands of pages, like how does this tech help you and your customers get answers faster?
What we kind of do is we put them all in a hopper essentially, and we use Lexxari to extract that data. We still have humans in the loop on our team. And so professional adjusters and estimators, customer service, all the above, and they utilize the tool to extract this data on demand based on specific policy language.
So let's put that in a specific use case, right? So like walk us through the scenario.
Yeah, per scenarios, Chad, you're a policyholder. You're sitting at home and a tree just hit your roof. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Never a great experience. Never a great experience. You call your agent, and the agent is probably on the golf course, which is most often the case, or not available to get a hold of them, right? And so a lot of times you have some supporting staff in the office there, and they're usually the ones that pick up that call from you. And you'll say, "Hey, Gab, I had a tree fall on my roof. What do I do?" And say, well, let's just see if you have coverage, Chad. And I would take the policy, I'd upload it into Lexxari and say, yes, you do have coverage. Next steps here within the Lexxari product would say, hey, we need to find a contractor. Do you have a contractor, Chad? No, I do not.
No, I need your help.
Yep. So say, all right, Chad, I'm going to click this and you're going to we'll fill out an intake form for you, and that'll go to Claims Connection Group. And then at that point, it gets funneled into our system, our BAW system. And we dispatch a contractor for you, Chad, to get your house tarped and repairs started in the claim file.
Okay, so that makes sense. And I appreciate how we're kind of grounding this in a real world operation. So if you've got a major storm event, like if it's not a tree and a Chad, it's, like a big storm and it's lots of trees or it's widespread, like how does walk us through a little bit about how Lexxari helps in those kinds of mass scale situations?
Yes, so in the industry we call that a catastrophe or a CAT, and so that would be a hurricane, fire. There's a lot of those lately. So what happens then is it's very on the carrier side and on the agent side. Most people will call their agent first before the carrier. A lot will call the carrier as well, but we've seen hold times with very large carriers, up to 3 to 4 hours. Well, that doesn't fly when your house is on fire.
Right.
So that's what we call triage scenario, and that's where Lexxari comes in, and especially on the catastrophes like a hurricane and or fire, is we're able to extract the data for your specific policy, figure out what the removal expenses are, the mitigation expenses are immediately. So that way when the contractors are on site, or dispatch, they know what the limits are and where they can work within the coverages without having you end up or the policyholders end up with out-of-pocket bills that are unnecessary or unknown.
Okay, so as a customer, I call the agent, bad thing happens. The agent then uses Lexxari to start answering the questions that I've got for them. So why is it such a problem? Like, why is this hard?
It's that's a great question, because it's something, you know, I hope everybody doesn't go through multiple times during their home ownership and or car ownership.
Yes,
so,
we'll all hope that.
Yes, so from our perspective, it happens quite often, where these triage scenarios happen, and we live it, and it is very difficult. It's stressful. I can give you an example. So up in Minnesota last year, we had I've been doing this 20 years, and there's been 2 of them in the 20 years. It's a derecho, or an inland hurricane. So this is 100 miles from the Canadian border, 130 to 145 mile an hour sustained winds.
Wow.
So 9 million trees blew over on
homes.
Holy
smokes.
100-year-old trees to 150-year-old trees. That's the town, ironically, where I grew up. So I know it intimately. And it was, my contractors were up. We sent them up there immediately. There was some coverage decisions. Well, everybody needs the trees out of their yard, out of their driveway, so they can gain access. They need them off their roofs. And people had sometimes 50 to 60 trees down in their yard. And so they're calling their agent. And what happened immediately with a few of the local agents is they were giving improper advice on coverage, and having the customer actually hire the tree company to do the removal, and telling them that they had 5% of their home coverage, which, if that's $300,000, $15,000 allocated for that. Well, if you dig down the policy language to page 28, it says, yes, that is true if the tree has been on fire, not blown over by wind.
Okay, so that's okay. Now I'm getting it. So the scale is, it's huge, or can be huge, and it's urgent because, like, maybe people are hurt, houses are damaged, etc. So there are thousands of phone calls happening, and agents are having to make these decisions and give advice really quickly. And some of the advice is a little bit subtle, like, you know, it's, hey, it's provision here, here, here. Oh, except footnote down here. And so Lexxari is able to, like, pull all of that together, so the agent's got, like, all of the right information really fast to handle the volume. Am I getting it?
Correct, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you're very much, like, not just about efficiency, but also about accuracy and consistency.
Yes.
Okay, well, tell you what, it's time for the demo.
Awesome.
So yeah, let's see. Yeah, Gab, take it away. Show us what this looks like from the user's point of view, please.
Hey, everyone. So what the user sees here is the Lexxari landing page. And what this gives the user is the ability to go in and drag and drop, or simply upload a policy, right? So I'm going to do that right now. And what our system does is, the first thing it's going to do is to analyze the policy and understand whether it can be, its text can be extracted. If not, the system will use a specialized large language model with vision capabilities in order to extract the text content. And this was important because we want our platform to work for different types of documents, right? Some documents are from certain providers are easy to read. Some other documents come in all sorts of, different formats, and we wanted this to be homogenized and standardized so that, independent of the document that you're using, the model can access and analyze the policy, right? So it passed all the checks. We have an uploaded policy. What do we do now? We can click on one of the damage types that need to be analyzed, right? So I'm going to click on fire. And what this does is that this sends a grid of questions to a large language model that exists in watsonx.ai. So we're using a Llama meta model, and it will use the question grid in order to extract the answers that are contained in the document. So here we're using a sample document, right? So these are sample values. This is not a real person, but this will extract the name of the customer, the policy period, as well as the address and some other kind of metadata, right?
Mark, sorry, Gab, I got a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What if you and Mark decided that you wanted to use a different model. So instead of the Llama model from Meta that you wanted to use, pick one of the others, would you be able to swap it?
Yeah, very easy. Everything here that I'm showing you today has been deployed in Code Engine, and these are all what we call environmental variables that can be set in the deployment configurations, right? So here I set as a configuration variable, I've set the meta model, but if you want to use, let's say, a Mistral model or a Granite model to do your Q&A, or even connect a model from an external model provider, such as OpenAI, you can absolutely do that as well. Everything is run through the Watson Orchestrate platform.
Excellent. It's the point I wanted to make. One of IBM's positions in the marketplace is like, hey, we'll make, you want to solve a problem, we'll make it, we'll help you solve it. You can use whatever pieces you want. So I'm glad that modularity is, really brought to fullest fruition here.
Absolutely. So once you've generated the answers to the questions, right? Something that was extremely important for Mark and for the Lexxari team was to be able to have some kind of sourcing. And sourcing is important because we want to understand how and where the large language model that is answering the question got its data from, right? And that's an integral exercise in building trust, because as we know, large language models have a tendency to hallucinate, and you want to be able to say, hey, the model found the information on this page, right? So every answer has the page number associated with where the answer was from, right? And you can actually kind of open it and see where it got the answers. So that was kind of a
human double check.
Human double check, exactly, right? And so this was part of the trust building exercise that we've engaged in. So every damage type has a grid of about 16 to 20 questions, right? And you can run as many as you want, right? So I can keep on clicking here. And these are going to generate what we call smart sheets. And those are what the users, right? So Lexxari's users are going to then use to interact with their clients down the road, right? And so we can actually download the smart sheets, and all the information that the LLM has extracted is readily available here, and then can be easily shared with Lexxari's users.
Okay, cool. So so you can pull out these key questions that are kind of preformed to get this smart sheet or cheat sheet. Thinking back to the Cliff Notes, thinking back to my school days, or like customers, like if you have a question that doesn't happen to be one of the 16, then what happens then?
Pardon me?
If you have a question that's not one of these 16,
great question.
What happens then?
Yeah, so this is, in case you have freeform questions that are not readily available in your smart sheets, right? You can use the Ask Lexxari chatbot, and that's a Watson Orchestrate chatbot that we integrated into our front end. Mm-hmm. And I'll just cover a couple of technical details just to kind of explain how this works. When you log on for the first time, and we skip this, but there's an OIDC flow that allows authenticated users to pass in their username and their password. Everything that happens within the app tracks who the end user was, right? So in this case, it's indexed to my email address. And this is going to be very important for the latter part of this demo, because I want to also show all of the analytics that are being collected, because that is also an integral part of what we sought out to build with CCG, which is the ability to kind of keep track of who the users are, get an understanding of what types of questions they ask, so that in the future, these can almost be fed back into the system in order to refine the smart sheets and refine the AI's behavior, right? So whenever you're deploying an AI, it's important to collect data on how that AI is used and how well it answers questions in order to fix the AI if any concerning behavior comes up, but also to improve it proactively down the line to meet your users where they're at. So
great philosophy. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I log on, right? And I've uploaded my policy document. Now what I can do is just ask freeform questions, right? So I have a couple of ones that are pre-populated here, and that's what the model will do is reach out to the text that was extracted and use a kind of retrieval augmented generation tool, right? So this agent is connected to a specialized tool to do the question answering for us. And the really cool thing about that as well is that this comes actually with sentence level sourcing. Right. So talking about building trust and talking about being able to source the information that was used to fed the large language model, this really gives you a really granular view into what that information is. And then another capability that the user can do, right? So we talked about analytics, is that you can give the responses an upvote or downvote, and again, everything is kept track of in order to analyze and to come up with like improvements down the line, right? So now that I've kind of
that makes a ton of sense. I was going to say, like, let's flip along to see some of the analytics.
Yes. So yeah, this takes a second to start up. Oh, here we go. So these are the analytics that show you the usage over the last couple days, right? We can toggle between 7 days, 90 days. And as you can see, like this is literally the session that I just had, right? That I just demoed a couple minutes ago. And there are two tabs that we can look at, and I can kind of expand this out so we can see more data. But this is the chat assistant tab, right? So this captures all of the interactions you've had with the chatbot, and you see, yeah, this is great to see because this, we're clearly showing here that CCG's user base has been actively involved with this application, trying it out and giving us some feedback, right? So we're collecting data on how the users are using it. We're also collecting data on the types of smart sheets that are being generated, right? And so this gives us an idea of like the types of the damage types that people are using, how often each user is using the application, what types of policies are being processed, and so on. And again, all of this is collected as important information. And our goal in the future, right, is to build a system that is able to intelligently pick up these analytics and provide suggestions and improvements for the app, almost like the AI, like learning from itself.
Gotcha. Gab, thank you very much for the demo. It's an excellent time to transition a little bit and talk about what the design requirements were for the entire system. Mark, can you start us out with the couple that were important to you?
Yes, modularity was the biggest. So for us, it was very simple to keep it in our system, but we created this as a separate product. And we need to be modular because we work with small agents, big agents, and carriers. So to Gab's demo purposes, and I'm sure he'll get into it, that's what we needed, is we need something that can move from use case to use case and still be functional across the board.
Right. And even from like deployment area to deployment area, if you work with so many other people or other types of organizations, like they're going to use your tool in various other technical situations.
Correct. Yes, it could fit into even an adjusting firm, right? And that's what we're saying here is there's so many different use cases in the different roles. And so we wanted to be able to satisfy that need for all these users.
Makes sense. Okay, what was your number two?
Number two was, as we started collaborating on this project, I wanted to sit down, and I did. I sat down with Gab for roughly 2 hours, and I gave him the view from Pluto of what we're looking to do here. And I honestly look back at that after we've deployed here and we're getting this into the market, that was the biggest hinge. And again, we've built other products in BAW software. And I feel like looking back, that 2-hour conversation was very, very big in how this turned out and how it turned out so quickly and efficiently.
Right. Gab, on your side, taking those requirements from Mark, how did you translate those into design? Like, what were the design requirements that you're like, for me to give this to Mark, he's going to need this 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So what we wanted was for the platform to be simple, right? Because it's going to serve a lot of different users with different profiles. So easy to use. We wanted to be scalable. So we just didn't want, only 5 people to be able to use this concurrently, right? It had to be able to manage potentially in the future, dozens, if not hundreds, hopefully of users in parallel. Had to be secure, right? We're dealing with insurance. We're dealing with private information that cannot leak. If a user from company A cannot have access to data from a user from company B, right? And then the 2 most important parts from my perspective were then explainability, right? How do we track whether the AI, how the AI is answering questions, and then accuracy. is the AI generating the right smart sheets? And when you're asking it freeform questions, is it answering in the right way? So those were the elements at the forefront. And we started simple. We built things up in a way that allowed us to preserve all of these macro level requirements.
Let's double click into accuracy, because somebody's got a tree on their house. You cannot be giving them wrong advice. So this thing has to produce accurate responses. So how do you make sure it gets it right?
Yeah, it's simple, really. All responses have to be grounded in the source policy language. The large language model cannot come up with verbiage or language that is not in the policy, right? And then we had extensive testing with Mark and other SMEs to validate the answers. We also had our agent with feedback support, so people could the end users could give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and that feeds into the accuracy tracking. And finally, the humans are always responsible for the final decision.
That last one seems super important to me. Like, maybe in years forward, we'll get more faith and trust, and it'll prove itself out. But right now, like Mark, having you or one of your staff, give it the rubber stamp makes an absolute ton of sense. Actually, talking about that, Mark or Gab, can you tell us a little bit more about like the human review process? Like, where does that fit in this really tight loop when you're trying to get somebody answers real fast?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So as I'm reviewing the policy, I'll just give you the previous version real quickly, is I would field the call, I would pull up your policy, and I've looked at policies for 20 years. And even at that point, it would take me roughly 15 minutes to 45 minutes to give you that decision because of all the limitations.
So previous version means before Lexxari, this is what you had to do. Okay, very skilled user, 20 years experience, 15 minutes to read through the thing and get your answer. Okay, got it. Now what does the world look like now?
I have Lexxari. I'm uploading that policy into Lexxari. I'm hearing the trees on your roof. I'm pulling up the feedback and the source policy language as it's answering the question. I'm making that decision to you, Chad, and saying, hey, go ahead and hire said contractor to remove that tree. Okay, and I'm doing that in a matter of a minute at this point.
So that 15x improvement at least. What surprised you the most during the development?
Yeah, I was honestly really positively surprised by how great the initial answers were. So with very little engineering, we were already able to really impress Mark and the Lexxari team. The large language models are able to extract data so efficiently and so succinctly. That was really positive. And then I think it was the work with Mark and his team, quite frankly, combining AI with domain expertise has allowed us to really power through this very efficiently, and we got this done much quicker than was anticipated.
Gab, can you walk us through the architecture, please?
Absolutely. So let's start on the box at the very top of the diagram. This is our user interface. It's a UI that was developed and deployed on IBM Code Engine, and in that UI, the user is going to upload a PDF. The PDF is going to be scanned. If it needs special scanning because it's a particular PDF, we have a specialized vision model that does that. If not, the text is extracted. Now, within that UI, the user can select a damage type. This is the analysis that they want to run on top of the PDF. And all of that is done via another backend that we've deployed on IBM Code Engine, which leverages a vision model and leverages an LLM in order to generate the smart sheets, right? So you log on, you upload a PDF, everything gets sent to watsonx.ai for analysis, and the results are displayed in the front end. At the same time, the front end has a chatbot that you can interact with, and that chatbot is a watsonx Orchestrate chatbot that is embedded in the UI. Now all of the interactions, whether they're around the smart sheets or the conversations you're having with the chatbot, everything is logged in Elasticsearch so that you can maintain analytics and you can analyze the way that the users are using the platform.
Makes a ton of sense, and obviously that all references back to your to the demo that you did earlier. So Gab, that's a lot of stuff. What infra supports all of it?
Yeah, everything here, all the services are in IBM Cloud.
Okay, very cool. Let's talk about scalability and how well the services and the infra supports you as you move from, one or two test users to hundreds.
Yeah, so the architecture that you see here was intentionally modular from the start, which means that essentially every node that you see in this diagram can evolve independently as the customer requirements change. And that kind of gives us the flexibility to support, different types of deployment models, different types of stacks, and whatever, enterprise requirements may come down to us in the future.
So, Mark, over to you. Like, how does that modular architecture enable you to make new decisions or serve new needs?
Yeah, that was a big one from the start. Is we knew that we were number one starting with something new, but and our customers coming up, like I said, could be a family office, could be a large insurance carrier, broker, and they often want to keep their data silent. We want to be modular and be able to plug in to those systems as those conversations happen.
Gotcha. So being able to plug into like whatever system your customers are using, whether large or small. Yeah, to be honest, like doing these sessions, meeting customers where they are is a thing that technologists forget to do sometimes. But the business folks are like, no, we got to make it available in tool A, B, and C because customers X, Y, Z need all of those. All right. All right, looking back. So that was clearly a good decision. Looking back, what other things do you wish you knew then that you know now that would have helped you make a better decision before? Gab, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the biggest one, start simple. Simpler workflows often outperform more complex designs. And what we kind of found out was integration became more important than figuring out which was the best model, which hyperparameters. We just wanted to integrate all the stacks, all of the different services that we're using and showcasing how that works. So orchestration was super critical here.
That's actually really interesting because everybody's obviously like consumed with AI as well. They should be, right? It's a very valuable tool. But your notion there that integration of tech stacks as well as data was the critical thing. Like for all the data warehousing people out there, the source data is still the most important thing in an AI system. Okay, what surprised you most about the implementation then?
Yeah, how quickly we were able to reach our goals once we integrated the existing technologies the right way.
Supporting the previous lesson learned. Was anything what was harder than expected?
Yeah, integrating all these different components, right?
Okay, I guess we covered that one. Mark, what did you learn on the? Oh yeah, Mark, what did you learn on the business side?
The process matters. I mean, we came in with the process flow from out the gate, really. And then the workflows, as we kind of had our marching orders, we collaborated very well with Expert Labs on this one and Gab specifically. And so those parameters were set immediately out the gate. And I think that's what helped with the success here.
Excellent. Also great to hear from an IBM side that the collaboration and the good listening of the IBM people helped to make this successful. So congrats, Gab. Mark, what would you do differently if you were starting this thing over?
I mean, in a perfect world, if I was waving my magic wand, I'd spend a little bit more time mapping out the workflows up front, and then continue involving the business users earlier and often. So like to keep them, and we will have that. But again, this is a new product. But if I was to do it again, and as we add on to this, that's what we'll do in the future.
Gotcha. Let's switch now from the technical lessons learned side to the customer impact. So what's been the big impact for your customers, Mark?
It's been huge. We did drop it into a few different just agents I've worked with for the last 15, 20 years. And this is something that has been a real thorn in their side. And so even when we felt it wasn't perfect, but having that, knowing to rely on the manual review and double checking, it was significantly better than what they've been dealing with currently. So it doesn't need to be 99% effective, immediately. And
right.
That's something we learned in a hurry.
as long as it's got the required accuracy, that's good. Man, so many tech projects learn that, hey, good enough still provides value. It doesn't have to be perfect.
In my world, yes, sir, 100%. I can tell you that.
So how has this changed the experience for your policyholders, right? These are the people that like I'm caring most about because like they're me.
Yes. It's a big deal. You know, if circle back to the tree issue, right? Or the claims. If you don't actually have a claim and you file one, well, you now can't be shopped. You can't actually shop for another insurance carrier if you have too many of these no pay claims. So you're stuck with the insurer that you have for 5 to 7 years, which means they can charge you whatever they want to charge you. So this helps mitigate that. Therefore, you can keep shopping if you need to.
Gotcha. What's next for Lexxari?
Lexxari, next pieces are, Gab touched on it with the smart sheet kind of auto-populating as the claim flows go through, but we're definitely we're going to start building out a quoting tool. And then upon renewals, so when you have renewals that we never pay attention to in the mailbox and we throw them in the garbage, it'll automatically populate that and tell you what the difference is on your 2026 renewal versus your 2027.
Gotcha. And then Gab, how about for you?
Yeah, we want to keep building on explainability and observability, right? We want to keep on expanding automation to increase the efficiency of the workflows, and we want to experiment with different AI orchestration capabilities.
Excellent. Gentlemen, let me give Mark a final thought here. So like Mark, in all of these tools that are available, what's making Lexxari really special?
Honestly, really, it's not overly complicated. We're not using. it's keeping it simple, you know, and that's shout out to Gab here on that one. But you know, where I was thinking, hey, we need to attack this thing with an army of agents, that wasn't the case, and we're able to satisfy the business solution. So I mean, what more could you ask for, really, in my opinion?
That is the perfect place to wrap it. Gentlemen, thank you very, very, very much for joining me. And Gab, congratulations on the success. And Mark, best to you. And like, I hope you provide fantastic value and do incredibly well with this as a potential user and beneficiary of your work here.
I appreciate it, Chad.
Thank you.